It's preparing. I guess it just had to be my profile.
Yep. Awesome. So we're live stream.
We are. It's preparing. I guess it just had to be my profile. Okay.
Cool. Yep.
Yay.
Awesome. So we're live stream.
We are. It's preparing. I guess it just had to be my profile.
Yep.
Oh, I see. Yay.
Awesome. So we're live stream.
We are. It's preparing. I guess it just had to be my.
Okay. I did get a little bit of an echo there.
It's because I had the audio on the live stream and we were hearing it again.
Okay. Gotcha.
We got it.
All right. Let me.
Okay, now I'm gonna make you the host. And it should still let us live stream. So, okay, you're official. Good morning, Fred. Will, can you see when people are entering the room too?
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, we will get started in just a minute. And for those of you who are not able to join us at 11 a.m. Central Standard, although LinkedIn just really wants to do me wrong and changes the time, we are here, we are live, we're going to do this thing. So super excited to have you guys on this call today. Will and I have been eagerly waiting to share some of this info with you because honestly, we hear automation all the time and it's super overwhelming and we get hit by it a lot. And I think the times that we notice we get hit by automation is when it hits really cringy. And today our call is going to be about how to do automation and not be cringy. And I'm so excited because this is a huge goal of mine to not be cringe, although I make mistakes and I'm definitely human. LinkedIn, thank you. But I can't wait to go through this with you, Will, and get to know the folks that are attending, that are on the live, and also here with us on Zoom. So, Will, do you want to get yourself introduced and then I'll introduce myself?
Well, sure. So it's about 11:01. I want to give us about 2 more minutes just to kind of, make sure we get everybody in here. I don't want anyone to, lose out. But if you're here, just drop where you're like watching this live stream from. I always like to see just like how wide of reach we can get on some of these calls. Plus, these webinars are actually a lot of fun. Just to give a little bit about myself as we're getting started, like I've been doing automation for the better part of 20 years. And, I've automated everything from billing systems to, client databases to customer relationship management systems. So it's something that just like I always approach any task with a thought towards it. And so much of it just gets done badly. And especially now that AI is, becoming a much more prevalent thing, it becomes just this like go-to where it's like, oh, let's automate this using AI. And half the time you're either unnecessarily using AI or you're unnecessarily using automation. And you get these really cringy results. And so that's really what we want to talk about today. That's really what we want to get away from. I'll share some of my tips and tricks for finding actual like people that are doing cringy AI that are not necessarily doing things right, or if they're just doing things badly. And that's where you see things 99% of the time. It's just that automation is done badly, so clients know that it's automation, and then it leads to things like, oh, well, you're just a bot. I'm not even going to bother talking to you. I want to actually like connect with an actual human being and build a relationship around a business.
I think that's such a good point. This is definitely hits very close to my heart because I take great pride in the ability to be human, even on the internet. And at one point, it's backfired in a weird way because I sent someone a video and his response was, amazing video. What AI tool are you using? And I was sad and also a little surprised because I think our assumption is that everything is automated, which is great when it works, right? But it's terrible when it doesn't. And we need to figure out as business owners how we can leverage the power of AI, the power of automation, and really make it make sense for our customers, their journey, where they are and what they see. And is it communicating the value of our brand? So I'm excited about this conversation. My name is Jessica. I'm the founder of a few things. I have been an ops manager, so I am a salesperson with a soul because I get operational process and I understand how important that is to the marketing and sales messaging so that we can make sure we keep satisfied customers. My company is 90 Days to Slay. Will and I have met. We are working together. We are the exact opposites of the house. So it's really awesome to kind of see our different perspectives on this because I think many of us find ourselves in business positions where we have a very like technical kind of person on our team and then a very relationship person, and mending those two pieces together to create a really great experience for customers is what we're going to go through today. So, um, Will, we're going to be talking about the steps that you should be taking to automate your business without being cringe. And I know there is an example on the next slide of some of those cringy fails, right? Today, we're just bombarded by automation and attempts at customization, and sometimes they just don't hit right. I have protected the name of an innocent person using automation that reached out to Will, as you can see on LinkedIn. This is a great example of automation and how we as humans are trying to be seen as humans. So we may put an emoji in our name, and the AI is not picking that up. The automation is not picking that up. And what it tells about that conversation is that it may not be worth our time, which is really unfortunate. We're going to talk today about the backbone process and what you should be mindful while creating your automations. I think a lot of us get overwhelmed with what does a workflow look like? What does an automation look like? You're doing those tasks now. So you just need to start documenting and then figure out what the automation is for the way that you want your customers to experience your business. Online marketing can be a dangerous place if you're not careful. As you can see from these examples, we are human, but we can leverage this technology to make our businesses better and make more money ultimately. So we have a few folks on the call. I'm curious, and go ahead and feel free to unmute yourself. What is the cringiest automation that you've experienced recently? As you can see, failed attempts at personalization, maybe using our first name too many times. Does anyone have anything they want to share? You can unmute and share if you'd like. Will, do you have something you wanted to share that I didn't put on the slide?
Yeah, so I'll share with you guys just a really cool trick that I picked up. So one of the things that I did was I actually started including an emoji by my name. And what I would do is like I would find wherever I was working, I would add a different emoji when I changed over jobs. And so not only could I then use that emoji to identify when they got the list, but I could also identify them as somebody that had just like thrown my name in and had just scraped everything off of the internet. The great thing about this was it really allowed me to kind of, be absolutely ruthless with my time. Working in product as I have for so long, I get a lot of like pulls on me for my time, my expertise, my experience.
Mhm.
So I very quickly was like, all right, I'm just doing that. And anyone that just doesn't address me by my actual name, but just throws in like the emojis and everything, I'm going to just filter that. You don't even get to my inbox to see me.
Nice. Nice.
And it did so well. It's like I would see like all these things where it's like, oh, I occasionally would look at like the other mail. I would have like 30 or 40 or 50 all
Wow.
just dropped in there and nobody, and I don't even see them, so I'm not even bothered by them. And
Yeah.
that's the thing is automation is all about building things that are going to be useful to both you and to your clients. Yeah,
100.
so
Excellent. So
you know,
some people are using science against us as marketers and salespeople, and how unfair, how unfair, which means that we just need to be better at our game, right?
yeah, and that's the thing. Like, you know, for businesses, like if you want to succeed, you have to consistently generate new leads. You have to nurture these leads into booking. And nurturing these leads into booking doesn't involve awful automations. And once you get to that booking point, you can turn them into sales because you have that human and that relationship kind of touch point. And for us, it's about being able to turn those sales into reviews, being able to show that you've got people that are very, very happy, not just to promote your business and the result that they had with you, but see it all the way through and tell other people about it. Because that's going to ultimately turn them into not just positive reviewers, but that's also going to turn them into repeat buyers. I always say, like, I'm not just selling you on myself at this job, I'm selling you on this at my next 5 jobs.
Ooh, that's so wise. I think from an entrepreneur standpoint, we really lose an opportunity to document those relationships and a thing that we take with us, because that is true. In today's world, you're not just selling the product that you're backing at the moment, right? You are literally selling the experience of doing business with you, even if you work for a large corporation. And so making sure that you have those contacts and that you're nurturing those relationships, even when your emoji changes on your name, as Will has, right? It's important to keep those things up. So that's a great point. Thank you, Will.
Yeah, it sounds easy, but like most businesses aren't hitting the mark in these layers. So let's kind of dive into some specific ways that we can ensure that businesses can capitalize on these using automation.
Hmm.
Yeah. So, one of the way that we can help these outcomes is, we can work with what we call the Fast Five automation. We also have the missed call text back. We can automate and improve the customer onboarding process. We can automate the review requests, and then we can automate and digitize forms that your business uses. All 5 of these are incredibly impactful, and consistently using each of these is going to work through, but most businesses aren't hitting the mark. So let's look into it. Let's look at the Fast Five first. So Fast Five automation, the ultimate 5-minute nurture. So quick show of hands here. Just use the emojis. Who's done lead generation for their business before?
Never. I've never done sales in my life. It's giving that as a disclaimer. Kidding, kidding, kidding.
Oh wow. So okay. Yeah, so Nathan's done sales. So
Yes.
I'm sure y'all have worked with somebody else in your business working to generate leads, and a conversation probably went along the lines of, you only got me three leads this month. And they're like, no, we actually sent you 10. And it goes on and on with some finger pointing. And the reality is both of you are right. Here's the thing. Businesses typically don't know what to do with leads because businesses are used to referrals. They're used to people walking in the front door or calling in who have already been pre-sold by a friend or a family member. And that's very, very different than generating a cold lead off the internet. And so there's this disconnect here. And we don't want to sit on our high horse and say, oh, you just don't know what you're doing. It's that there are 2 different ways of thinking. And this is part of why Jess and I work together so well, is because we come from it from that very different standpoint. And we have to actually make sure that we can talk to each other. And if we can't talk to each other, then there's no success, there's no synergy happening. But see, the thing is, like, you don't know how to close leads because it costs us clients. And so it's not just good for us to sit back and say, Well, we did our part of the job, and if you can't do your end, you must be a crappy client. We need to solve for the problem. And the good news is that we can solve for this problem. So first, what we need to understand is if we're going to solve for the problem, the number one factor here is speed. Speed to the lead. Response time is really what I'm getting at. So if we look at this chart, this was a chart by a study by a professor at MIT. And basically what the study showed was that after 5 minutes, the odds of connecting with a lead or a qualifying contact drop by about 80%. So essentially they fall off a cliff. Responding to leads within the first minute increases conversion rates by almost 400%. So, let's let that sink in. Take a look at this graph. Now, if within 5 minutes you're engaging a new lead, your odds of success are dramatically increased. Whereas 10 minutes later, you can see just that huge drop off. And, you want to be able to capitalize on that. You want to be able to capitalize on that, especially, because what we're going to do is we're going to get into this ultimate 5-minute nurture system. So the biggest problem we see is that the person that's doing the follow-up for all these incoming leads isn't always available. That person usually has a million things to do. They're answering inbound phone calls, they're dealing with walk-ins, they're taking out the trash, they're picking up lunch, they're walking the owner's dog 3 times a day. And all of these make it nearly impossible for that person to, 1, even try to handle a new lead, and 2, know what they're going to do to get them. And so while they may think, oh yeah, at the end of the day, I go through and I contact as many of these new leads as came in, and that's adequate. It's not when we look at what we just saw in this graph, right? We have a 5-minute window. And so this is where we need to get smart, and we need to leverage automation, which is what we're going to learn about. So, as we talk about this automation, what this automation does is within that first 5 minutes, we ultimately wait through 3 minutes of those first 5 minutes to see if that client actually booked a service with us. Then we immediately send, after that 3 minutes expires, we hit them and we send them an email to claim an offer. So whatever our offer is. So if we're selling teeth whitening for a dentist, or if we're selling a free injury assessment if you're a chiropractor, or whatever your niche in your business is, whatever your offer to onboard clients is, we use that there. So we send that to their email, and then we send them an SMS message where we go through and we say, hey, I just want to let you know I sent an email with this. If you're interested in booking an appointment, you can book it here at this link. Sound good? And then they'll either answer yes or no. And what we'll do is whatever they answer, we'll send that back, and we'll feed that through. We've got a tool that checks the sentiment. So it does a sentiment check where it's like that sentiment's positive. If it's positive, we'll send them the booking link and be like, okay, great. Here, let's book this and get you on their way. Instantly they can book and go on. But if they don't respond, or they have any if they have any negative sentiment, we send that internal notification. If they don't book or anything, what we do is we'll wait for 2 minutes through this, and then we'll send a call, and we can send that call directly to whoever's phone that you need to be following up with the leads in your business. So it can be yours, it can be someone on your sales team, whoever that is. They can call, and it'll give them a whisper. It will say, hey, we have a call with an incoming lead for whatever your offer is, and press 1 to connect the call. That will let them connect the call, and then they can go through and talk with the client while they're still in that mindset of, I have this problem. What we're always going to see is you want to be able to sell your product to somebody when they're at that point of greatest desire. So it's like, if you're hungry, it's the best time to sell a steak to you. But after you've eaten, it's no longer a good time to sell you a steak. At that time, it's like, hey, how was that steak? I want to get a testimonial. Can I record you just telling me how that was? And that's asking for that testimonial, which we'll get to in a little while. But if that doesn't work, and if we don't connect that call, we have a pre-recorded voicemail that we automatically just drop in that person's voicemail for you. And then you can wait a day and you can do an additional follow-up as necessary. So that'll get you through the Fast 5, which is just absolutely incredible in the way it works.
I think, I think about businesses that I've done business with, and Will, you are so on point. When there is a pain point that I am experiencing in the moment, the potential that I have saying yes to something more expensive than I was planning on. Like, I love the food example because you go to a restaurant, you sit down, you're hungry, and the waitress says, are you gonna, would you like to also have my dessert recommendation? She's literally selling you on a thing that in 15, 20 minutes, you're probably not going to buy, but you bought because they put it into your awareness and you're already eager for the service or the experience. And I think as small business owners and service-based business owners in particular, like, you are competing with so much noise. But the cool thing is that a lot of noise has a really bad follow-up game. So
Yeah.
even if your message isn't perfect, you are still concerned about the copy, maybe you're testing it out. I can pretty much guarantee you that if you do things with urgency and consistency, you are going to be ahead of your competition by a yard. And that will leave an imprint on your customer, even if they decide not to buy it this time.
Yeah. And let's get into that next phase, which is that follow-up. So one of the things is you're leaving leads on the table. So what we do is with our platform, we offer an online chat widget as well as a missed call text back. And so with that missed call text back, you are able to actually go, and when someone calls and they don't get you for whatever reason, maybe you were on a job site working, maybe you were on another call with somebody, it will immediately text them back and say, hey, very sorry that I missed your call. Is there something that we can do? Most businesses don't have that SMS capability, and most consumers have SMS as a preferred method of connecting. Now, don't get me wrong, paid ads can be highly effective, and if you have the budget, you should definitely be running. But there are other tactics and tools that we can put in place to generate leads without having to spend on ads. By adding this simple messaging widget to your website, you're able to enable visitors to initiate that text message conversation that you can manage in a mobile app or on a computer without having to use your real mobile number, which, for a lot of business owners, like, you see people that have like, oh, I've got 2 cell phones now because I run a business and I don't want every customer to have my own personal cell phone number. It's great because up until recently, all these widgets, they were live chat. And that was really frustrating to people because there's never anyone available on the other end, and they don't want to sit around forever having to wait on a website for the reply. With SMS, it just goes straight back to their phone, and it's like they can send that first message on the website. All the follow-up gets done in text messaging.
I think. Oh, sorry, Will. Sorry.
And businesses are typically amazed by just the amount of conversations that are generated as soon as they put that on their site.
Agreed. The channel of communication is such an important aspect. I think a lot of us have had the email is the way to go, and it's like drilled into our head, and we focus so much on the composition of a newsletter or an email. But potentially, depending on the business that you're in, and depending on where your customer is in their awareness stage, texting or maybe even a social media post, like, you really have to understand, and this is where oh my God, I can't speak today.
Automation.
Thank you. I'm here doing a webinar about it. Where automation is really important because you got to understand your processes first, and then you got to break down what channels that make sense on to have the highest engagement. And again, we're talking about that noise. So if you're not communicating in a channel that your customer is comfortable or willing to do business in, you're going to lose them even if your flow is amazing. And I think that that's something interesting as you're building your business. There is not one way to do everything. It's constantly A/B testing. And when you have a environment set up where you can do that, you can look at your statistics, because many of us, and I speak from previous life experience before meeting Will, and he made me get my stuff together, more together, is that you have all of this data over multiple platforms, and you're trying to make business decisions off of that. You can't do that with your financials. You can't do that with your customer journey. So looking at your results, being intentional and mindful about the channel is really critical, I think. And those touch points are important, and we'll talk about them briefly on the next slide too, is that I mentioned earlier. Oh, sorry, I was a slide ahead.
You're
Go
a
ahead.
slide, yeah, you're a
Yeah,
slide ahead.
I am.
So just to bring everything back for a second,
Yes.
once your business is SMS capable, you'll be ready to fix an issue that's likely costing you a small fortune, which is the missed calls.
Yep.
Statistically, the average local business misses about 64% of their inbound calls. Now, you might be thinking, there's no way we can miss 64% of our calls. Let's assume you're only missing 20, and that equates to 10 missed calls a day, and that one of those would be a sale. But the caller went on to dial a competitor. Do the math on how much that's costing you now every day, every week, and every month.
Mhm.
Good news is with the technology solution, we can automate back a text. And that's what we were talking about earlier. It's like, it's like when we do this, sorry we missed your call, how can we help anyone? And then imagine how much money and lost revenue that saves just by having that single step.
Untrackable amounts if you have no way to
Yeah.
track, right? Like that's the thing that catches us all in a weird place. Is like, well, we're not losing money. Well, we don't have any proof of it. But once we start implementing processes, then we really start seeing the truth. So the statistics that Will and I have been talking about are general from, businesses all across the US, and their experiences that we've personally had individually as well. I know, and I can speak from, personal experience in the last week. I was trying to find a particular product. I was calling around. The first person that actually was helpful and answered the questions I had and was they had a process, they knew who to transfer me to. It changed the way that I thought that day. It really did. It has a major impact on your customers' mental health. So keep that in mind. I want to talk a little bit about, we've talked about channels, we've talked about like stages of awareness. I think this is something important to consider as you're working on building your automations. You need to understand where your customer prospect lead is. You may have an established customer that has done business with you and maybe bought one service or product. They've gone through the sales process. You think you have them in the bag. You don't until you can prove that you can do that multiple times, right? You need to figure out where your prospects are in this, the interest, consideration, or commitment phase, and then where your current clients are too, because there's always something more that you can offer your customers. Maybe it's an additional subscription, maybe it's a new service that you're testing out, whatever it is. You are constantly in a sales cycle for everyone in your CRM. And looking at these different phases, it's really interesting because I'm kind of a visual person. So I imagine that if someone is in an interest phase, what information would I want to be sending them? What automation and workflows would I want to create that wouldn't completely scare the crap out of them? If they've already told me, hey, Jess, I'm really interested in your service, but I'm also considering this other service, then my attack for that particular phase is going to be very different. And then when they've committed, it's going to be real awkward if I send them an email after they've already said, yeah, I want to buy, because I didn't stop an automation or someone added something new, or I send them this weird email that I'd scheduled that says, I'm so glad we met. I can't wait to hear about your business. How many times has that happened? I don't know. Raise your hand. Throw up an emoji, like maybe a pukey face emoji would be most appropriate, because I've seen this, I've experienced it, and my response was, man, this is really a bummer, because immediately now I'm questioning if you were actually real since we were communicating digitally, or if your process is broken. And that's definitely a bummer. So remembering where your customers are in their current experience is really important as you're creating your automation.
Yeah, and you get right to it. So, the biggest thing is onboarding. So let's talk onboarding sequences. The welcome email that you send after your client buys your offer or your product generally has the highest open rate that you'll see of any email that you send out. It's typically about just over 90%. It's the one email that can truly make or break that relationship with clients. So often it gets neglected. Some people make the mistake of sending 4 or 5 different emails within the first few minutes of signing up because they come from multiple systems. And that just results in your clients being overloaded, but you also need to make sure that they have all of the information. And that's part of one of the things that I like to do. We help eliminate that by building that welcome email sequence so that it's done properly, so that it only has that password when they need it. It only has, it's like, hey, this is the one email that you should save because it's going to have all your vital information at this time. This is how you're going to log in. This is how it's going to do everything. And then that way, the only other email they'll probably get is likely going to be a 2-factor authentication email. So instead of it being like, welcome to the platform, blah, 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 we're so happy that you're here, then it's like, hey, here are your credentials. Hey, here's your 2-factor authentication. Oh, hey, you also got this product, so we're sending you this email too. We work to combine all of these together so that people don't get overwhelmed by it, and they have a central location for all that information. It's like, what do you think is going to land better with your clients? Is it going to be that flood of emails with tons of information? Or is it going to be a long-term steady stream of well-timed emails that will help them see the most benefit from working with you? That's the biggest question. That's why onboarding is just such an important part.
Yeah. Well, it sets the tone for the relationship. Like, if you are coming from a sales conversation saying that you're mindful of your customer experience and that's really important to you, and then you slam them with some weird email that says best regards at the end, and it's just awkward and AI filled, it's going to break down the trust that you worked so hard to build. And that's super unfortunate.
Yeah, and that trust is so important, especially when we've talked about all of these other options. Now it's like we built that trust, and now we're at the point where they're satisfied. That steak was delicious, so now we want to say, hey, will you get on camera? Will you tell us how much you like the steak? Most businesses focus their attention on getting that sale, and they don't have a system or process in place to take the next step, which is turning that customer into a review. And generating that consistent flow of new reviews is crucial to a business's growth for several reasons. If you're already using automations to get your business reviews, kind of just like pop an emoji up right here. But that steady stream of positive reviews correlates very strongly with better rankings in your local search results. And a large majority of consumers look at those previous reviews before making a decision about who they're going to do business with. So the more reviews you generate, the more visibility you get from Google. And on top of that, all of the other search engines, all the other local search engines that are out there, there are over 90 of them. We can work with you and make sure that you get listed on as many as are possible. But you start converting more of that traffic because people like your reviews. So it just creates this flywheel effect where you just gain more and more momentum. The problem is most businesses don't have a system in place to easily generate these reviews. And with the feature that we have called review requests, we can actually use these. We can pre-program a message requesting a review that links directly to the review panel in Google, and that can be shot out with just a few taps. In a lot of cases, this can even be automated to fire off a purchase or an appointment.
Those Google reviews will make or break your business. And I know we have a lot of folks in our network. Thank you for joining. We'll definitely send you the recording. You can go to the YouTube live and watch it on my YouTube too. But I think we sometimes imagine that the only people who will leave Google reviews are folks that we've interacted with personally that have told us how great the service or product is. But if people don't know how helpful a Google review is for your small business, they won't make the effort to leave the review unless they're really mad. And that's a whole nother story, right? But we need to capture their attention and get that review because people do want to support you. Most of the time people are helpful, but you've got to make it so easy, right? Like, it's got to be simple.
Yeah, and another big opportunity that's typically missed when it comes to reviews is just the simple act of replying. You know,
Mm,
as you can see, the stats around review replies are crazy, but the truth is, we like to see how a business interacts with its customers, especially when the business gets a bad review. Um, I've heard about the idea of the stealth one-star review for gyms, where the person just complains because it's like every time they leave the gym, they wake up sore the next day. And so it's like they do this whole thing about it, and it just got to be this whole one-star review where it's like it's all about them like complaining about getting results. And the gym owner's like, well, that's kind of the point. You're supposed to get sore because that's how you know that it's working.
oh my gosh.
And as
Sometimes you can't make customers happy. Like, man.
But as crazy as it might sound, there's actually a bond that's created between a business and a customer when the business takes the time to reply. It creates this unique form of loyalty. It makes it so that customer feels like they've been heard, and whether you do this manually in your Google business profile or you work with us and you can do it in the app, it's critical that you consistently request reviews and, two is reply to every review as they come in. Google will see, oh, this person only replies to 60% of their reviews. Like whether it's a 5-star or 1-star or somewhere in between, that active replying is going to help boost you in all of those search rankings over the long term.
Nice. Man, that responsiveness is so important. It reminds me of something that happened to me a few weeks ago. I left a review for a really great service provider. When we bought our house, the inspector came out, the builder had a hot mess, so the inspector had lots of things that they uncovered. 8 years later, they responded to my positive Google review, and they don't even have the same name anymore because they've been bought out. But I thought, oh my gosh, that really is horrible,
Yeah.
honestly. And it was not a positive experience. In fact, it made me want to go back and adjust my review because it was just so silly. So I think that's another thing to take in consideration. If your customer is happy with you in that moment, man, hit that up, get that positive 5-star review. But if things have changed and there's maybe some other things that happen in between now and then that now has created a positive review to a negative, they're not going to go back and change that positive unless they're really angry, but they are definitely going to leave an angry review, right? So get it while it's hot, get it while people are happy. Don't wait 8 years, maybe. That's pretty solid advice.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah. Exactly. Uh, so we've talked about all these different points of the sales process. Now I want to focus on like one last point that is very salient, that is incredibly important, especially as we see a lot more businesses are, needing to use contracts and documents within their business.
hmm,
Uh, you know, 9 out of 10 times, like I'll get a DocuSign and it'll look like this, where it's just got like 80 to 100 of these spots where it's like, oh, you need to sign here, you need to sign here, you need to sign here. Um, and it's like, oh, fill in this information and go all the way down this form.
hmm.
And it's not a great experience. And one of the great things is we can actually digitize a document and build it into your automation. So it will automatically fill out that form for your client, fill it out for you. It's like, ask yourself, which is the better experience? Is it wait for a form to come and then have to fill in 20 to 30 fields? Or immediately, once you're at that step in any sort of process, get a form that's automatically filled out with your information. You don't have to type your name in. You don't have to type in the date. You don't have to type in all of these different pieces. It's
Yeah.
just it's so cringy when it's like, oh, you just uploaded a PDF and then you just created a bunch of rectangles over here. And now this just looks absolutely awful. And I always feel like this could have been done so much better. How could we do it better? And
It seems shady too. Like I feel like maybe they're not very protective with my data. If they're just kind of offhandedly using some free tool like that's also an issue when you're looking at forms. Most likely there's something pretty critical and important. There's contracts, there's some sort of PII that you're sharing, and it's really important to give your customer a smooth experience because they, again, any way that you you like create friction for that trust is a potential lost customer in that cycle.
Yeah, and so like this also it like became a really big issue for realtors after the National Association of Realtors lawsuit that came out. Now if you want to see a house, they have to send you like a DocuSign for you to sign and sign up for that representation. And so like I was going through and I started automating a real estate agency this past week. And they sent me 27 different documents that were all just like scans. And so I went through and I digitized everything and we were able to put them in the workflow. And so we took a workflow that had over 57 steps in it. And we got it down to where 54 of those steps in that process are done automatically just based off of triggers, based off of an email about, an inspection coming in, a negotiation being done. And there were really only like 3 steps that had to be that couldn't be automated. That was going through pulling matching properties for the client by the realtor that they do that actual check to make sure they meet the client standards, getting those approved, and then actually doing the negotiation that's happening back and forth between 2 real estate agents. And that's part of what we want to do is we want to be able to be intentional about automation. We want to be able to sit down and say, let's talk about your workflow. Let's talk about what's necessary in that process, and how do we take 54 of those steps out of that process?
Yeah.
When you have all those steps in a process, a lot of times what you see is like people think that they know their workflow process, but it's like, all right, so at this step, you're onboarding a client. Do you send them an email? Do you do this? And it's like they know these steps, but they don't really realize what all goes into all of those steps. And so it's great to sit down with somebody and actually like create that entire process and send them the flow chart of everything that actually happens in that process, because then we can actually be thoughtful about the automation. We can ask that question of, hey, is this really needed? Do I really need to send 5 documents to this client? Or maybe do I just need to send this one? Do I need to send this email? Do I need to send email, a text, and a voicemail all at the same time? You want to make sure that, you contact your clients in the most effective way possible. You get the information that you need so that you can help them, because, when it comes down to it, like the service that you want to provide always is focusing on, helping your clients and helping them do what's best for them, when it comes to, working with your service. Obviously, they've come to you because they need help with that thing. They can't do it by themselves. And so, you have to be very thoughtful about how it is. And, we talk about that customer journey, and we talk about how we automate that customer journey all the way through.
Yeah. I think I just had to do this. You have to be so demure. You have to be so thoughtful and mindful. That's literally automation. Like in a meme, you guys. I know.
I thought we said we weren't going to be cringe here.
We're gonna do it. We're gonna do it because we done. But I think that we really talked a lot about like that customer experience, and maybe it feels as it did to me super overwhelming to start automating things because I have a fear of automation. So not FOMO, but I guess it's FOMA really, of like when that automation hits, how will it affect the relationship that I've spent so much time building? And I want to share some tools with y'all about the tech stack that I've been using to kind of start documenting my processes so that we can run it into full automations. And there's a lot of things that go into that, like your copy, what channel it is, all these things that Will's talked about during this call. So some of the tools that I use, and I will send out all the links to these tools to you guys in our follow-up email, and I'll post it on LinkedIn as well. But Magical is a free tool, actually, that's pretty spiffy. Basically what you do, and you can see from the snapshot, you can just put a // and it brings up all your prompts. And it's a Chrome extension. So I have all of these messages that I've saved that I've used periodically, like when we do the Connect Over Coffee invite or a webinar or something, like if there's an event or am hosting something or speaking, whatever, I'll create a message and then I will send that out. So I can just, no matter what channel I'm in, I might be in an email, I might be in a text message on my Chrome extension, whatever tool I'm using that's in Chrome, I can pull that prompt up and it's very cool. I discovered this tool from a friend of mine actually who attended our Connect Over Coffee, and he shared it with me, and I have been a fan ever since. In fact, my virtual assistant and she and I both use it, and it's very cool. So that's one tool that I thought, giving you guys some freebies of tools to use. Another one, and I know Will is more of a super user of these type of tools, but something like Draw.io, as you are thinking about your process, you can do it really simple. You can document it on paper. I had a meeting last week with a prospect client of mine, and he was running into the situation where he needed to do some damage control with folks that he hadn't had personal contact with, but a salesperson had for the last 2 years. Okay, great. Well, first of all, we need to segment it down. Whose contract expires in the next 60 days? We need to hit those people up with very intentional relationship conversations so they renew. So what I did is I drew a straight line on a piece of paper for him because we were having lunch. And I said, what channels of communication do your people respond to? They're heavy texters. Okay, great. We're going to lay out 20 or 30 touch points over the next 35 days. You're just going to start laying it out. And I want you to create those touch points and then start documenting what you want to send. But the most important thing is figure out what your process is, and then we can automate it. But let's get the meat and potatoes of what you need to do first. And Draw.io is a really good tool for that. My final tools that I want to share are a combination of two, and it is super normal AI. I use this to record calls. So anytime I'm on Zoom or I'm on a Google Meet, it transcribes and records the video and all the text. The transcription is great. It's usually very accurate. It even goes further and creates an action plan for me. So I don't know about y'all, but I am in meetings back to back sometimes, and my short-term memory is trash. Let's be honest, my long-term memory is becoming trash. So for me, I'm in the moment, I'm having a great conversation, I'm excited to talk to someone, and then I'm forgetting the small nuances, oh, when we were on the call together, they ordered their coffee at Starbucks. They order a half calf latte with 2 sweeteners. Great. Now I'm going to take that transcription of that call and I'm going to go back and I'm going to create my customized follow-up if it's, a prospect that I'm, actively engaged with. I'm going to take the content from that transcription and I'm going to throw it into ChatGPT and I'm going to ask it to create, what are the unique things that this person shared with me that they're excited about? I can start creating content based on that. I can also repurpose it across multiple channels. So using ChatGPT as a place to download your conversation and then critically ask it questions is a game changer. I do not use the free version of ChatGPT because I use it all the time. So I pay the $24 a month. I can't speak to how great the free version is, but this tool has really transformed the way that as a solopreneur, I can manage in a mindful, intentional way conversations and relationships. So like I said, I'm going to send out all links to those. Those are some really powerful tools that I've been using. Will, do you have any amazing tools that you wanted to share?
I mean, I'm always going to be hypercritical of all of this stuff. I'm going to tell everybody right now, don't go to any AI and ask it how many R's are in the word strawberry because it will tell you there are 2 and then it will start to fight with you. But at the same time, AI is great until it jumps out of the meeting notes that I've got a action item where I've got to follow up with Taylor Swift. And that's just
which really happened when I Connect Over Coffee because that did happen. It was will follow up with Taylor Swift. And it was a moment and it was beautiful. You're right.
And what I like to tell everybody is AI and large language models, they're good for organizing information. They're designed around, taking a conversation, being able to get the notes out of it, but they aren't going to be good. You should never count on any of these large language models for doing things like research, But like if you want it to format documents, if you want it to, craft some general responses that you can use later on, that's absolutely the best use case. That's going to help you out. But don't let it turn into something where it's like, oh, I'm just going to totally depend on this. Like I have a chat GPT autoresponder where you can actually respond to Instagram and Facebook and all of the other comments that you want in any of your social channels. If you want to connect it, you can connect it, and we can connect it on our platform. But I'll specifically tell you, like, ChatGPT still has some pretty serious deficiencies where it's like, you tell it to just generate a response and send it back, and it's like, it sends back to the person that asked for help. Okay, sure. I think a great response for that would be, and then spits out the response. And so like it doesn't work the way it should all the time.
Yeah. 100%. I mean, that's the thing. Like, trust nothing, verify everything. And I think that's where sometimes automation fails, is because we're trusting it, we're not verifying, all of the things hit at the same time, and then we look like we're a weird robot, and it's very awkward for everyone. So, use with discretion, but there are tools that if you're using them in the right way and you're thinking critically and you're verifying, they can be very powerful.
Yeah. And just so to help you go back and make sure that you've got your bases covered for your own business, like I'd love to sit down on a call with you and do an initial workflow audit like we do when we take on a new client. By the end of that conversation, we should know if we're a good fit together. And even if we aren't, you should have some great insights about how you can make your business run more smoothly. Feel free, you can scan this QR code if you want to book some time with us to, go through and have that conversation to see if we could work well together. No pressure on it or anything like that. But I hope you've learned from these automation discussions that you can really use it to supercharge your business. You just have to make sure that you know your workflows in your business, and you shouldn't try to automate a workflow that you don't fully understand.
Yeah, so true. Well, we have a few minutes before the top of the hour. So any questions in the Zoom, any things that you guys would like to talk about? We're happy to open up the conversation. I know sometimes it's awkward to be put on the spot. I love being put on the spot. Not everyone does. But like I said earlier, the recording is going to be on YouTube, so I'll send that link out. If you are interested in talking to Will or myself about sales, marketing, automations, or just, getting some good ideas for your business, like, does this tech work for you? Is this what you should be looking at? Our goal collectively is that we really want to help small businesses. Like, our reason for starting our companies was to allow smaller businesses and support smaller businesses, leveraging the power of big tech tools in ways that just delight their customers. And that's our mission. We want to do the built for you model. We want to support you in every way that we can, but also we want to be a resource for you. So I hope that today's call was helpful. It was fun for us. We're looking forward to our next webinar, which we will be holding monthly, and then we're going to probably start doing them every 2 weeks. So keep an eye out on, well, don't believe LinkedIn for a dang moment because the time is off, but look at my LinkedIn feed and I'll send custom invites. But we should be meeting on Tuesdays at 11 a.m. At the end of the month. That is when our next webinar is planned. And if you have suggestions for something that you're interested in hearing about, drop them in the chat, unmute yourself, share with us, or send Will or myself a DM or message. But be sure not to just include that little blackbird on Will's because you will be exposed. I guess we're going to get wrapped up if no one has any questions. Thank you, guys. We appreciate your time.
Thanks, y'all.
Thank you.